Good morning. Welcome, everyone. I'll ask Mr. Dong. I was just looking at Joseph a second ago. I almost called you Mr. Melchers. Ask Mr. Dong to read the docket.
I answered anything. Good morning. We're here for the annual review of purchase gas adjustment and gas purchasing policies of Dominion Energy South Carolina Incorporated, docket number 2019-5G. Mr. Chairman, other members of the commission, the docket is in order.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take appearances.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Matthew Gissendanner. I'm corporate counsel for Dominion Energy South Carolina. And with me today is Mr. Chad Burgess, who is also corporate counsel for Dominion Energy South Carolina. Together we represent the company, and it's our pleasure to appear before you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Mr. Nelson.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Nelson and Alex Knowles on behalf of ORS.
Thank you. Welcome. Okay, is there anything that we need to do before we start?
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, good morning again. Dominion Energy of South Carolina and the Office of Regulatory Staff have entered into and filed with this commission a stipulation agreeing to most all of the issues in this case. That stipulation was filed with the commission last Wednesday. ORS believes the stipulation offered is fair and reasonable and resolution of all issues in this proceeding with the exception of the notice issue, which we had brought up in Mr. Sandonato's testimony. The parties to the settlement agreed to stipulate into the record without objection or cross-examination the testimony and exhibits of all of the witnesses except for ORS witness Sandonato. Mr. Chairman, at this time I'd ask the stipulation along with this Exhibit 1 be marked for identification and entered into the record as the first hearing exhibit.
Okay, the stipulation will be entered as Exhibit number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. ORS will present 2 witnesses today. We'll present those as a panel. I thank the commission for allowing us to do that. Mr. Zach Payne of ORS Audit Department and Anthony Sandonato of ORS Utilities Rates and Services Department. And that completes preliminary matters. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
If I may, I have a question that I'd like just response on the record from attorneys for both parties, please. As I read the stipulation, the changes or modifications to the general terms and conditions are not before us today. Is that correct?
They are before you. We simply have not reached a stipulation on those general terms and conditions.
Okay.
That's correct. I agree with Mr. Gissendanner.
Okay, so you are asking for modifications in this proceeding?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Company, present your case.
Dominion Energy South Carolina calls Felicia Howard, Rachel Elliott, and Rose Jackson and asks that they be seated at the middle table. Ms. Howard, would you please state your name for the record?
Felicia Howard.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
Dominion Energy, South Carolina, as the Vice President of Gas Operations.
And have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 10 pages that was previously filed with the commission in this docket?
Yes, I have.
Do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed testimony?
No, I do not.
So if I ask you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Felicia Howard be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Ms. Howard's pre-filed direct testimony will be entered into the record as though given orally from the stand.
Ms. Howard, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes, I have.
Would you please share that with us at this time?
Certainly. Good morning, Chairman Randall and members of the Commission. The purpose of today's proceeding is to determine the prudence of Dominion Energy South Carolina's gas purchasing policies and practices during the period August 1st, 2018 through July 31st, 2019, and to determine if the company properly applied its tariff in recovering its gas costs. The company has developed a safe and reliable natural gas system through which we serve our customers. Over time, Dominion Energy South Carolina has seen its natural gas distribution system grow to more than 10,203 miles of pipeline, which includes 9,748 miles of distribution mains and 455 miles of transmission mains, plus over 415,045 service lines. Through these facilities, the company delivers safe, reliable natural gas service to approximately 386,000 factories, businesses, and homes in South Carolina. Dominion Energy South Carolina also owns and operates 2 liquefied natural gas facilities which allow the storage of natural gas in a liquid form to be used primarily to help meet peak loads on the system and as a backup supply of gas in emergency situations. Firm demand on the company's system has continued to grow, and Dominion Energy South Carolina has consistently improved and expanded its system by adding pipeline to serve its new and existing customers and create operating flexibility on its system. Moreover, the company completed a number of projects to improve safety, reliability, and integrity. As this commission is aware, Dominion Energy South Carolina's highest priority is to safeguard and protect those individuals who come in contact with the Dominion Energy South Carolina system, including employees, customers, and the public at large. During the review period, the company prudently managed its business operations, which included the purchase and recovery of its gas supplies and administration of the PGA. Therefore, on behalf of Dominion Energy South Carolina, I respectfully request the Commission find that the company has recovered its gas costs for the review period consistent with its tariff, and Commission orders that it has purchased its gas supplies and administered the PGA in a prudent and reasonable manner. This concludes my summary.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Ms. Elliott, would you please state your name for the record?
It's Rachel Elliott.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Dominion Energy Southeast Services as the manager of electric and gas regulatory accounting.
Ms. Elliott, have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 6 pages that was previously filed with the Commission in this docket?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No, I do not.
So if I ask you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Rachel Elliott be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Ms. Elliott's pre-filed direct testimony will be entered into the record as though given orally from the stand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Elliott, have you also prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision 2 exhibits labeled as exhibit numbers RRE1 and RRE2 that were previously filed with the Commission as an attachment to your pre-filed direct testimony in this docket?
Yes.
And do you have any changes or additions to your exhibits?
No.
Mr. Chairman, I would also move into the record as the next hearing composite exhibit the exhibits attached to Ms. Elliott's testimony and labeled as exhibit numbers RRE1 and RRE2.
Ms. Elliott's exhibits RRE1 and 2 will be entered as composite exhibit number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Elliott, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes.
Would you please share that with us at this time?
Good morning, Chairman Randall and members of the Commission. I'm appearing today to support the company's gas cost recovery mechanism and to support the cost of gas data for the period under review in this proceeding, which is August 1, 2018 through July 31, 2019. In administering the company's cost of gas recovery mechanism, Dominion Energy South Carolina calculates the gas cost factor for each customer class each month using a rolling 12-month forecast of both demand and commodity cost. The company reviews the demand charge cost of gas allocation factors each year during the PGA proceeding and updates the factors to reflect current forecast parameters. These allocations are based on a weighting of 50% forecast sales and 50% forecast peak design day demand. The stipulation proposes to continue this demand cost allocation method and requests that the allocation factors, as presented in my direct testimony, be approved beginning with the first billing cycle of January of 2020. Exhibit RRE-1 accurately reflects administration of the PGA recovery mechanism as approved by the Commission, and Exhibit RRE-2 shows a summary of the monthly forecast of gas cost components and the resulting monthly over-under collection balances. The end-of-period balance of 0 shows that the forecasted gas cost factors would eliminate any projected over-under collection amount by the end of the forecast period ending August 2020. During the review period, Dominion Energy South Carolina properly administered the purchased gas adjustment and correctly adjusted the gas cost recovery factors for each customer class in accordance with the terms of Order Number 2006-679 as modified by Order Number 2009-910. In addition, Dominion Energy South Carolina recovered its gas costs consistent with applicable tariffs and Commission orders. Accordingly, and consistent with the stipulation, Dominion Energy South Carolina respectfully requests the Commission find that the company has recovered its gas costs for the review period consistent with its tariffs and Commission orders, and that it has purchased its gas supplies and administered the PGA in a prudent and reasonable manner. This concludes my summary.
Thank you, Ms. Elliott. Ms. Jackson, would you please state your name for the record?
Rose Moore Jackson.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Dominion Energy Southeast Services Incorporated as the General Manager of Supply and Asset Management.
Ms. Jackson, have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 16 pages that was previously filed with the Commission in this docket?
Yes, sir.
And do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed testimony?
No, sir.
So if I ask you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Rose Jackson be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Ms. Jackson's pre-filed direct testimony will be read into the record as though given orally from the stand and entered into the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Jackson, have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision 4 exhibits labeled as exhibit numbers RMJ1, RMJ2, RMJ3, and RMJ4 that were previously filed with the Commission as attachments to your direct testimony?
Yes, sir.
And do you have any changes or additions to your exhibits?
Yes, sir. I have 2 corrections. The first is on Exhibit RMJ-3 on page 13 of 14. It's under the Article 10, Sales of Approved Emergency Gas Capacity Related. If you will go down to the 6th line, that line reads priced at $50 per decatherm, and that should read priced at $20 per decatherm. It was correctly stated in my testimony, but it was incorrectly stated in that exhibit. And then on Exhibit RMJ-4, the same correction needs to be made on page 12 of 12 in Article 10. The 6th line down should read priced at $20 per decatherm instead of priced at $50 per decatherm.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. And do you have any other changes or additions to your exhibits?
No, sir, I do not.
Mr. Chairman, I've provided the Commission with copies of corrected exhibits 3 and 4. So at this time, I would also move into the record as the next hearing composite exhibit the exhibits attached to Ms. Jackson's testimony and labeled as exhibit numbers RMJ1, RMJ2, and corrected exhibit numbers RMJ3 and RMJ4.
Ms. Jackson's exhibits RMJ1 and RMJ2, and then the corrected RMJ3 and 4 will be entered as hearing exhibit number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Jackson, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes, sir.
Would you please share that with us at this time?
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Randall and members of the Commission. My testimony discusses the company's portfolio of gas supply. During the review period, the company's gas asset portfolio relied upon all 3 gas supply options available to it, namely wellhead gas supply, underground storage secured from Southern Natural Gas Company or Southern, and Transcontinental Gas Pipeline or Transco, and liquefied natural gas, also known as LNG. Dominion Energy South Carolina combines these supply options with interstate transportation to meet its firm demand under varying weather conditions at reasonable cost. During the review period, Dominion Energy South Carolina contracted for sufficient supplies of natural gas, provided reliable service to its customers, and adequately and prudently maintained gas, storage, and transportation assets to meet the needs of the system. In my testimony, I also explained proposed revisions to the company's general terms and conditions for natural gas service. During the past few winter seasons, the East Coast has encountered extremely cold weather, which has resulted in an increase in firm customer usage, an increase in the number of curtailments, and unprecedented daily natural gas prices in the company's market area. The changes to the general terms and conditions are proposed to deter interruptible customers from using natural gas during periods of curtailment and protect its firm customers, and also to encourage interruptible customers to contact the company in the event that an emergency situation occurs during periods of curtailment, while retaining the incentive to not use natural gas during periods of curtailment if at all possible. The company respectfully requests that the Commission approve the proposed tariff revisions. On October 31st, 2019, Dominion Energy South Carolina and the ORS entered into a stipulation as to certain issues in this matter. Under the stipulation, the parties accept the use of the cost of gas calculations for the review period set forth in Ms. Elliott's Exhibit RRE-1, agree to maintain the monthly adjustment procedure and notification procedure of the total cost of gas factors as adopted in prior Commission orders, acknowledge that the demand charges included in the total cost of gas factors will continue to be calculated by distributing such cost among the rate schedules based on a 50-50 allocation of peak design day demand and annual forecast sales, agree that the allocation factors contained on page 4 of Ms. Elliott's pre-filed direct testimony are appropriate and should be used for cost of gas calculations beginning with the first billing cycle of January 2020, and agree that the company shall continue to charge and recover carrying costs, if applicable, on the cumulative total over and under collection balances as set forth in prior Commission orders. Consistent with the stipulation, I respectfully request the Commission find that Dominion Energy South Carolina's cost of gas purchases and asset management were reasonable and prudent for the review period. This concludes my summary.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Chairman, the panel is available for questioning by the Commission.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Good to have all three of you with us again today.
Good morning.
Ms. Jackson, I have a question for you. If you could, maybe I'm going to refer to page 9 in your pre-file testimony. I'll give you a minute to get there.
Okay.
At the top, I'll just kind of read that paragraph and ask you. I'm going to ask you a few questions related to it. You got Dominion may no longer have the flexibility to rely on segmentation to meet design day needs between area points to the degree it has in the past due to more businesses subscribing to the DEC GT pipeline to serve increased firm demand on that system. Historically, Dominion has reviewed its firm capacity needs on a system-wide basis and relied on segmentation to meet design day needs between area points. However, as its ability to rely on segmentation decreases, Dominion South Carolina will be required to look at its system growth in a more detail by area points rather than on a system-wide basis in order to determine where new facilities will need to be constructed and to contract for any necessary additional firm transportation by area points. I got a couple of questions, Ms. Jackson, for you related to that whole paragraph. Number one, this issue was addressed last year as well. What has the data shown since you started reviewing the area points in more detail?
We currently have sufficient capacity to meet the demand needs of each area point on our system. And the process that we go through is on an annual basis in preparation for this PGA docket. Our resource planning group projects the new firm forecast demand for the upcoming winter season, and then we meet with our engineering group to review the area point forecast. We break it down into each area point. And part of that process is that we can make small modifications to each individual delivery point. So the engineering group goes back and evaluates what happened the previous winter season and what had happened historically. And then we submit area point modifications to DECGT. And they run their models and decide which one of those they can approve. And at this time, we do have sufficient capacity to meet all of those needs.
Well, thank you for that answer, Ms. Jackson. You may have kind of answered the last remaining questions I have about it with that thorough answer. But just for the record, have any new facilities been needed to or been constructed since the last PGA? I guess since you're saying you meet and have that capacity, the answer would be no.
We have acquired 5,600 decatherms of capacity, but that was capacity that was already on the system. It was just turned back by other customers.
Okay. Turn back in. Have you identified any other areas that you would need additional firm transportation capacity or going forward?
We are looking at that on a 10-year horizon. So each year, as I stated, we're updating that. Right now, we feel that we're okay through the next 5 to 7 years. But we're constantly looking for opportunities on the electronic bulletin boards. If existing capacity becomes available, we're trying to acquire that because that's going to be the lowest cost available to our customers.
And I know you're looking out even 10 years or certainly in that 5 to 7 range. Are there any... Could you share where any of those area points might be located or where you anticipate?
The majority of our growth is occurring in our coastal areas. So if you look at the Myrtle Beach area, River Neck Road is the interconnect that feeds into our coastal area. Charleston and Columbia are 3 major growth areas.
I noticed in your testimony and also Ms. Elliott and Ms. Howard's, I guess, I noticed a good bit of growth that they outlined in some of the areas that are in that PD coastal region that, of course, not in your electric service area, but I did see some growth that y'all highlighted in other areas, particularly out in that area. Even in the Sumter area, I think I saw some as well, too. So we thank you for providing all that and keeping us up to speed on where your growth's occurring, because we don't have any other way of knowing. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Belser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ms. Elliott, I just wanted to confirm if you can, is your exhibit RE, I think it's 1, is that the same exhibit that is attached to the stipulation that has been stipulated to by the parties? Are you aware of that?
I'm not familiar with the attachments. Do you have a copy?
Or Ms. Jackson, can you confirm that that is the same exhibit and that it's no changes, it's the same exhibit?
Yes, Commissioner, it's the same exhibit.
Okay. And if I might make a suggestion, your exhibits are very similar, except one's actuals and one's forecast. Is that correct?
Correct.
Would it be possible in the future in the caption to label one as actual for the review period and one as forecast? Because they look the same except for the dates on the left.
Absolutely.
Sometimes my exhibits get separated from my testimony and just makes it, but thank you for your thoroughness with that. Ms. Jackson, appreciate your testimony and going into some of the, or giving detail as to where the gas supplies or where y'all are utilizing where you're getting your gas from and stuff. But, I mean, we're hearing a lot these days with the pricing of natural gas. So I reckon looking forward kind of raises an issue of what would be a worst case scenario or bad scenario regarding price and operating reserve capacity deficiencies if something were to happen?
I think that based on the forecast that we receive from industry experts, in the next 3 to 5 years, we don't anticipate a huge increase in commodity cost. They're expected to be very stable in that $3 range. You may see short-term spikes or short-term dips. I mean, we've seen gas even trade at the $2 mark this year, you know, right around $2. So we don't expect any major changes in the cost of the commodity. However, my big concern for the next 5 to 10 years is the cost of interstate pipeline capacity and the timing of that. Just 5 years ago, I was here before the commission and saying that the typical FERC timeline for new projects was roughly 3 years from the pre-filing to the in-service date of those projects. Then I modified that to say 5 years, and now I will tell you, I don't know how long that timeline is.
Is that the FERC process or is that legal challenges?
Both, because the FERC process is dependent upon a number of these legal challenges. So if you look at the court case before the Supreme Court related to ACP and the Appalachian Trail crossing, that will determine the timeline of those pipeline projects. And it's looking like 7 years right now if they get a favorable resolution.
That's addressing the price part, but how about any forecast with is reserve capacities, any deficiencies or any issues with those?
It would be timing of the pipeline projects, because as we have said in the past, if you count on projects to come in 5 years, and then you look at something like Atlantic Coast Pipeline or Mountain Valley Pipeline, those projects have already been in the hopper for 5 years. But now they don't know when they'll be able to finalize and get back to constructing the pipeline. So when we look at 5 years as a potential in-service date and these projects are taking 7 years to build, then we may have an issue for those 2 years, and we'll have to go out and acquire a short-term delivered product to bridge into that.
And that response may go into this next thought, but is the utility in a position or situated to address any kind of worst-case scenario on reserve?
Yes, ma'am. We are constantly in the marketplace talking with suppliers, with interstate pipelines, and also with LNG providers. Many of you may have heard about the new mobile LNG or these smaller LNG solutions. We were able to utilize those in our Myrtle Beach area the winter season, and what it allows us to do is rely on a mobile LNG facility. We truck our existing LNG to that mobile vaporization, and we're able to utilize it without having to use interstate pipeline capacity. So as we look at a bridge to get to the next interstate pipeline capacity we need, that may be something else that we evaluate on a short-term basis.
How long? I mean, you mentioned this mobile LNG. How many customers can that support?
Depends on the size of the tank. So it's graduated. So they have different sizes of tanks to accommodate different areas.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate your testimony today.
Thank you. Commissioner Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Jackson, if you look at page 13 of your pre-filed direct testimony, you state that natural gas prices dropped to $2.11 per decatherm a day before the close of the review period.
Yes, sir.
That's a low that you haven't seen since the spring of 2016. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You also state the company relies on the 12-month rolling purchase gas adjustment mechanism to mitigate price volatility. So my question is, with the current price of natural gas at historic lows, do you see a need to reinstate the hedging program? And if not, why not?
the financial hedging program that we had previously for at that time, South Carolina Electric and Gas, what we found is that over time, it cost our customers, because with any hedging program, there is going to be a cost. And at the time that hedging program was implemented, we had a very volatile natural gas market. At this point in time, we do not. We have had a very stable natural gas market. The 12-month rolling average PGA helps us eliminate the volatility to our customers. But one other thing to note is we also have physical storage that we're able to utilize to purchase gas at those low periods, which are typically the shoulder months, if you will, and then hold that until we need it in the winter months. So those two components, we're going to have to continue to carry physical storage for reliability reasons. The 12-month rolling PGA does not cost our customers anything. So those two are low-cost options when compared to financial hedging.
So then, would it make more sense to increase your storage capacity?
We have looked at that. The concern is the cost of new storage fields versus what we have today. So over time, that may certainly be something that we consider. And from time to time, we are approached by new projects. So we certainly evaluate that when those opportunities are given to us in the marketplace.
In terms of the litigation surrounding the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, you referenced that, the fact that the Supreme Court's set to hear the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals decisions relating to permitting, I believe.
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering, just out of curiosity, if the parties have tried to explore a mediation or negotiated settlement in that litigation. Do you know?
I think they have tried just about everything.
Right.
And at times, they thought that the Fourth Circuit Court had made decisions that would enable them to restart construction, and another case was lodged against the project.
Because litigation could potentially drag it out. For example, if the Supreme Court remands it back for further hearing, that's going to make it even a longer process. I'm thinking that maybe, some creative process of a mediation or, to try to bring the parties closer together, maybe think outside the box on it might help. And I even thought that someday if we get to the perfecting the technology that Australia is already using, that is carbon capture, you got to, when you want to capture the carbon from the atmosphere, you've got to pipe it and store it underground. And if that's where we're headed with the technology, it might be that the pipeline could serve two purposes. It could bring natural gas in and carbon dioxide back to the storage. There are a lot of creative possibilities, and I just wonder if, anybody's really taking a look at that. I'd encourage, the parties to do that, because this stalemate's not really helping anybody. It's not going to help the ratepayers. It's just going to delay and cause more, put more stress on the system overall, the infrastructure. And it's just my thought. But I appreciate you being here today, and thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Commissioners. Any other questions?
Chairman.
Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, ladies. Happy to have you with us today. Ms. Jackson, following up on your last discussion with LNG.
Yes, sir.
And apparently, most of LNG was used to import, and now it's to export, but sounds like y'all have reached another level that has paid off for the company. As I understand it, it's economically feasible to do what you're doing with using the LNG that you can tank or truck to another situation?
Yes, sir. That's considered modular LNG, if you will. And so it's actually mobile. You can move it on tractor trailers, put it in the area that you need. And if you look at when we're trying to meet our colder than normal temperatures in these areas, instead of building pipeline to those areas, and in this case, we had to delay construction due to the heavy amounts of rain we had in that area. So the construction crew had to pull off because of the flooding. And so as an alternative to that pipeline being in the ground, we were able to contract with a third party to provide this modular LNG, and we trucked our own LNG from Bushy Park to that location in Myrtle Beach, and we're able to vaporize it right there on site.
And it's cost effective?
It is it's expensive, but for a short-term need in comparison to having interstate pipeline capacity when it's not available, because this is a bridge, if you will, to interstate pipeline capacity and to distribution capacity. When we run into extended periods of construction due to weather or due to litigation, this may be another alternative for us to use.
Okay, well, I'd like for you to keep us informed on your progress with this. It sounds very interesting.
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure those folks at Myrtle Beach appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
They didn't complain on that bill, I bet, did they?
No, sir.
Thank you. I have one other question, and I don't know which of you ladies want to tackle it, but I've noticed in going back through PGAs for at least the 5 years past, we've had under collections and we've had carrying charges that had to be added. Have you got any idea why under collection has been the rule of the day, it seems?
Yes, Commissioner. So as Ms. Jackson mentioned, we use a rolling 12-month forecast to set our gas cost factors each month. So we're looking at costs on an annual basis, and one of the primary reasons we use that rolling 12-month forecast is to try to take the volatility out of the prices for the customer. But what we're doing each month is we're comparing that 12-month average to the actual cost for the month. And so what we've seen the last several winters is in the wintertime, we've seen kind of spikes in the price. And so when you compare that spike in the price maybe to the average that we're using, the average is usually lower. What we're also seeing is with the last few winters, it's been warmer than normal. And so when you have a warmer than normal winter, your sales aren't what you perhaps projected, because you're projecting based on the fact that the weather is going to be normal. So when you couple volatility in the prices with lower volumes because of the warmer than normal winters, it makes it challenging to kind of recover our gas costs from month to month.
Could you give me an estimate or an idea of how this affects the ratepayer if you had projected more supply or more usage rather than the carrying cost?
Commissioner, I don't have that number. Now, in our carrying costs, they kind of work both ways. So if we're over collected, the customer gets the benefit of that. And we actually calculate our over under collection by class for both demand and commodity. So you have some instances where a class of customers may be over collected. You have some instances where a class of customers may be under collected. But overall, you end up with, right now, we're in an under collected state. Now, we are getting ready to head into the winter season. And we currently have our commodity component priced a little bit higher than the market price right now, in hopes of being able to shave some off of that under collection balance.
Thank you very much. Appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you. Commissioner Howard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a question any one of the panels can answer. Are there any differences in Dominion's policy versus SCNG? Do you have to go through any difference in calculation, asset management, anything like this? Is there any differences?
As far as the calculation, it's not any different. Now, what we are doing under Dominion's practices now is that we are doing our calculation earlier in the month because we have a new deadline for our accounting closing for the month. And so what that's requiring us to do some months is kind of estimate. The CIS billing, our customer billing folks may have to cut the billing cycles off a little sooner, like maybe a day or two earlier. And so we may have a month where those last 2 days of the month, we may be having to estimate the sales for the month. But what we do is later in the month, once we have the actual information from the customer billing folks, we true that difference up. So Again, it's not a change in the calculation itself, it's just maybe some time and differential because of a tighter closing window for accounting purposes.
I'm not gonna ask you which practice you prefer. That would be, that wouldn't be fair, would it? Two parts. Define your definition of segmentation and how many segments do you have in the market. Likewise, the same with area points. Define the definition of area points in your mind and how many area points you got in each segment, each market, however you want to decide on it.
Segmentation means that you have one piece of pipe where you can deliver supply into each end of it. So as long as you don't cross over, then you get the benefit of using that twice at the same price. So in effect, you can reduce your cost by 50%. So for instance, our DECGT capacity that runs from Aiken to Charleston, we can bring in long haul supply at Aiken off of Southern Natural Gas Pipeline, and we can also use Bushy Park LNG to inject into that same path. So in effect, it allows us to use it twice for one price. That's probably it has to go along where the path has to include another supply source. So for DECGT, that is it. It has to allow us to use Bushy Park LNG. With regard to area points, it's based on each individual pipeline. DECGT, I believe, has 9 area points, and then we have 5 direct connects that we also include in our forecasting. And all an area point is a virtual grouping, if you will, of points on the system. But they're looking at those areas and how they bring in gas into those areas.
This could be my imagination, but it seems in the past that we've had a lot more discussion in these things on lost and unaccounted for gas. There was very little conversation, any of your testimonies about lost and unaccounted for gas. However, I think Mr. Payne had a section in one of his exhibits. Why is that?
Well, it's actually, it's part of the calculation. Our accounting department, I'm not familiar with what all they go into to do, but we get a source and disposition report each month from the accounting group that kind of lays out, they look at kind of the sources of the gas coming into the system, and then they look at the disposition of that, and they calculate a unaccounted for amount each month. So that's actually done by a different group, not within the regulatory group, but that is something that's calculated each month by our accounting department.
I guess my question is it won't pay, what part does it play? I mean, is it that big a number, or do you know?
I can't remember an exact figure. I think the last report I might have looked at on a 12-month rolling average, it was about 0.5%. I mean, so we don't have a significant loss percentage.
One thing that I've always heard, I put it that way, but about lost gas in the atmosphere. You had a 0% of lost gas in the atmosphere. I just thought it was nature of the beast that you would have some lost gas to the atmosphere just in the process, but you said you had no gas lost to the atmosphere.
No, Commissioner, we do have gas loss, but it's not a significant percentage when you look at in total. We usually range between 0.5% versus, and I've seen it as high as 2%. So we do have some loss in unaccounted for gas, but it's a very low percentage in total.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioners, any up? Commissioner Urban.
Earlier, when we were talking about the new process that you're using in the Myrtle Beach area, you said it's costly. Is it possible that we could get some cost estimate on that? It seems to me that if that seems to be working well, it might be something we could revisit when we look at the integrated resource planning. You think that would be appropriate?
With regard to generation, it is very difficult to rely on modular LNG because of the volumes of gas that are required to produce electricity. The modular LNG is more applicable to the LDC needs because you're looking at a small area and a colder than normal scenario. And so it's going to be for a shorter duration. So if you look at the Myrtle Beach area, I can't remember the exact numbers, but let's say that we were going to supply 100 decatherms a day through that modular LNG. In comparison, our combined cycle units can use up to 100,000 decatherms a day.
So it's really not practical on a large scale.
No, sir, it's not really feasible for that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Belser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Elliott, I just wanted to follow up. When you were asked or responding to the question about any changes in policies from SCNG to Dominion, and you were talking about the timing of some of that. I just want to make sure, when you say that y'all are, that you might have cut off a couple of days and might have to estimate, that's on your part as far as overall. That's not estimating on customer side.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct. This is just for accounting purposes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure about
Yes,
that.
yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? I just have one, and I'm sorry, Ms. Howard and Ms. Elliott. It seems like Rose Jackson Day for the most part, but I know you're heard. But Ms. Jackson, you were talking in your summary and then and in your testimony on page 15, you were talking about the changes with the $20 per decatherm with the emergency gas. And I know interruptible contracts always look great until you get interrupted. So have you had any specific instances where your customers have had an emergency event and not been able to get gas or use gas?
We have had customers that have called in to request emergency gas that were denied because under the tariff provision, it states that it's very prescriptive as to what constitutes emergency gas. I will tell you that we have a number of customers that call every curtailment and request emergency gas. So I want to make sure that I get this on the record, that this is not a cost increase per se. This is a change in the calculation of a penalty that will allow us to lower the penalty portion of the emergency gas from $50 down to $20, so that it will encourage customers to call us when there is a legitimate emergency. However, we have seen over the last several years that a number of customers not only do not call in when they have an emergency, they burn through the curtailment. And this could jeopardize our system and harm our firm customers. So what we've seen along with other pipelines, other LDCs all along the East Coast is we want to make sure that our penalty gas cannot be calculated and compared to an alternate fuel source of supply so that they game our system. So this will not be any type of charge as long as our interruptible customers perform as they are obligated to do in their interruptible contracts. In exchange for that interruptibility, they enjoy a much lower rate than our firm customers pay. Therefore, they receive a much lower priority of service. So if they don't use gas when they're curtailed, they won't incur any cost. I can't tell you that the penalty gas charges that they've incurred in the past will be higher or lower because this new proposal ties the penalty gas and the emergency gas charge to the current market rate, which is going to make it more difficult for a customer to compare that cost to their alternate fuel price.
Gotcha. Thank you. I was just wondering about that. Any other questions, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Whitfield.
Thank you. You did spark one follow-up with me, Ms. Jackson, in describing that situation in the Myrtle Beach coastal area, Horry County. You said, I think you're telling Commissioner Irvin, you might have a need for 100 decatherms. How many trucks would that involve? You're bringing that Bushy Park up there. How many trucks would that involve meeting that type of need?
Commissioner Whitfield, I don't know the exact number of trucks. I do know that we worked with our engineering group and we were able to take it over a number of days. We basically leased those mobile LNG facilities, and as we needed it, as we saw the weather forecast getting colder than normal, let's say a week ahead, we would truck it at that point in time. I'm just not sure how many trucks were actually sent for the entire winter period.
And also in exchange with Commissioner Irvin is you had, until you have the long-term supply over in that region of the state, or until the pipeline gets near the North Carolina, South Carolina border, close enough to where you can tap into that resource, you may have to continue to do this. Obviously, you're, thinking outside the box, I guess, if you will. You may have to continue this practice for some time.
Yes, sir. It may be on a larger scale because
right.
This was a distribution pipeline issue where we had to delay construction. But when you look at the delays of interstate pipeline construction, we're certainly looking at different creative ideas to bridge us to that next pipeline project.
It's just not something that we normally think about. We think about it with propane, but we don't think about it in this form. And your safety concerns or issues, anything you want to share with us there? I know you have to vaporize it once you get to, so you vaporize it there once you truck it to Myrtle Beach. Has there been any other safety concerns for the public or anything?
No, sir, not at all.
Okay. Well, thanks to all three of you for being here. Appreciate your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anything else for these ladies? Ms. Howard, Ms. Elliott, Ms. Jackson? Okay. Thank you for your testimony, and you may step down. Mr. Gissendanner, anything else?
Just wanted to state that we have no redirect for the record.
Probably a good plan. Thanks for catching me on that one. I'm sure you would have stood up and said something if you had. Okay, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. ORS calls its witnesses Zach Payne and Anthony Sandinato to the stand.
Good morning, Mr. Payne.
Good morning, sir.
Would you please state your full name and occupation?
My name is Zachary Payne. I'm employed by the Office of Regulatory Staff as an audit manager.
Are you the same Zachary Payne who pre-filed 7 pages of direct testimony and 3 exhibits marked as audit exhibits ZJP1 to ZJP3 in this case on October 11th, 2019?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any changes or corrections to your pre-filed testimony or exhibits?
No, I do not.
If I asked you the questions contained in your pre-filed testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Mr. Chairman, ORS asks that the pre-filed direct testimony of Zachary Payne be entered into the record at this case as if given orally from the stand, and that Mr. Payne's exhibits 1 through 3 be marked as a composite hearing exhibit and entered into the record as the next hearing exhibit.
Okay, Mr. Payne's pre-filed direct testimony will be entered into the record as though given orally from the stand, and his exhibits ZJP 1 through 3 will be entered as exhibit number 4.
Thank you. And Mr. Payne, did you prepare a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes, I did.
Would you please present it for the commission?
Good morning, Chairman Randall and members of the commission. The purpose of my testimony is to present ORS Audit Department's findings and recommendations resulting from our examination of Dominion Energy South Carolina's purchase gas adjustment for the period of August 2018 through July 2019. Audit Exhibit ZJP1 presents, for each month of the review period, the components which comprise the cumulative PGA over-under collection. DESC began the period with a net under collection of $6,413,145. During the activity during the review period for the various components in the PGA resulted in an under collection balance at July 31st, 2019 of $14,683,867. During our review of the PGA, the company provided ORS with detailed calculations of its interstate pipeline storage and liquefied natural gas storage facility inventories. ORS accumulated the various inventory levels by storage location in total and summarizes them in audit exhibits ZJP2 and ZJP3 for commission consideration. Based on our examination, it is the opinion of ORS that the company's PGA under collection at July 31st, 2019 of $14,683,872 shown on Company Witness Robinson's Exhibit RRE1 is accurately stated.
Does this conclude your testimony, or your summary, Mr. Payne?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Sandonato.
Good morning.
Could you please state your full name and occupation for the commission?
My name is Anthony Sandonato, and I'm employed by the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff as a Senior Regulatory Manager.
Are you the same Anthony Sandonato who prepared and filed 13 pages of direct testimony in this docket on October 11th, 2019?
Yes, I am.
And do you have any changes or corrections to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No, I do not.
And if I asked you the same questions today as those stated in your pre-filed direct testimony, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Mr. Chairman, ORS would ask that the pre-filed direct testimony of Anthony Sandonato be read into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Mr. Sandonato's pre-filed testimony direct testimony will be entered into the record as though given orally from the stand.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sandonato, did you prepare a summary of your testimony?
Yes, I did.
Could you please share it with the commission?
Certainly. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. The ORS review covered the period of August 2018 through July of 2019. My testimony covered 4 key points. First, ORS reviewed the company's large construction and maintenance projects in order to ensure those projects promote the safe and reliable delivery of natural gas. Second, ORS found the company practiced reasonable gas purchasing policies and is prepared to meet next winter's projected firm customer requirements. Third, ORS found that the company administered and recovered its gas costs in a manner consistent with the current commission-approved tariffs and commission orders. Fourth, ORS has reviewed the proposed calculation of the demand cost of gas allocation factors and agrees with those factors to be implemented in January of 2020. Finally, ORS believes that the stipulation is in the public interest, and I request the commission approve the stipulation in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Sandonato. Does this conclude your summary?
Yes, it does.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Payne is available for questions from the commission, and Mr. Sandonato is available for questions from the company and the commission.
Okay. Mr. Gissendaner.
We have no cross.
Okay. Commissioners. Commissioner Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sandonato, in your profile testimony, you talked about the company's inability to rely on segmentation going forward. What has ORS done to analyze and verify that area point growth and its effect on the reserve capacity? If so, what have you found?
Yes, in order to look at the system on a point-by-point basis. We have the company provide us with the capacity and the reserves for each area point on their system, and we discuss any discrepancies that we have found with the company where we have concerns that there may be any, and based on discussion with the company and the information provided, we believe that they will be able to meet the capacity requirements of all firm customers at each segment, or area point, sorry.
So do you anticipate the area point growth affecting reserve capacity in the future proceedings?
I think that we'll continue to look at the area point growth and reserve capacity and monitor how it changes in future proceedings.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? These witnesses. Okay. Well, any redirect on that one question of Commissioner Howard's?
This might take a minute. No redirect, sir.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you for your testimony. You may step down.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anything further that we need to address in this hearing? Mr. Gissendaner.
We have nothing further. Were you going to set a proposed order date?
I'll let Mr. Dong take care of that.
I was. I'm trying to give y'all plenty of time. Would it be appropriate to do November the 29th? Well, I guess that's never mind. That's the Friday after Thanksgiving, isn't it? How about, is the 22nd enough time? Is it? Is that, I see a grimace from Jeff. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Okay. With that settled, if there's anything else, not, we're adjourned. Thank you.